Yes, so hey, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you coming. Why are we doing this brown bag session? So Michelle and I, we are both part of the fellowship, the Anu and Naveen Jain Fellowship in Health and Peace Innovation at the Global Center for Peace here at UPEACE. And we just wanted to take an opportunity and share with you a little bit about the research we're doing, but also to open a space to answer any questions you might have about research at UPEACE, PhDs, and if we're not able to answer them, at least we could tell you who you should contact. So thanks again for coming. This is a very informal session, so please feel free to enjoy meals if you have. However, it would be good if we could save our questions to the end of the session, just so that Michelle and I both can have enough time to share about our research. And I think we'll both quickly introduce ourselves, but we would also like you to share very quickly who you are, what's your name, which program are you in, or where at UPEACE do you work, just to give us a space to hear from each one of us. And if you could also share something else you feel comfortable sharing, maybe something that's not on your resume. So maybe I start. My name is Clara. Many of you know me. I'm from Germany. I studied ADP at UPEACE in 2017. And since then, I've been working in the south of Costa Rica on projects related to gender, water, and agriculture. And my interest lays in the intersection of water, environmental justice, and feminist research methodologies. And maybe something else to share is I really enjoy gardening and cycling and playing the piano.
I never know the piano part.
Who's the piano?
I have a concert.
No.
So my name is Michelle, and I'll share a little bit more about myself before I have my broader presentation, but I'm a doctoral student and fellow here at UPEACE. I did not do my master's here, but I'm really honored and excited to be here. I arrived last year for this particular program. And something about me that's not on my resume is that I like to sew by hand.
Hi, my name is Sylvia. I am a project manager here at UPEACE.
Hi, I'm Sylvia. I'm project manager here at UPEACE. I've been helping the fellows with their program.
Hi, my name is Gabriela Montero. I am program officer at UPEACE. And something, I don't know. Yeah, I also coordinate the program in Spanish in environment and development.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Jasper. I'm in the International Peace Studies program. Something random about me. I have 2 baby siblings, and they are my children, so.
Hi, I'm Colin. I'm in ecology and society, and I enjoy playing guitar and drinking coffee.
Hi, everyone. My name is Juan Carlos. I'm the Vice Rector and Professor of International Law. I'm a super fan of Star Wars. I think people have been in my office know that, but I'm looking forward to hear what you want to share. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie, a professor in the Peace and Conflict Studies Department. I love coffee. When I'm given a microphone, I really want to sing. And my daughter's middle name is named after a Star Wars character.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura. I am here for the certificate program in gender and development. I just got here this week. I really enjoy hiking, so if anyone has recommendations for places to go nearby, I'm all ears.
My name is Katia Moraga. I am the library coordinator. And what is the question?
Just something you would like to share.
Random. I like to dance, especially salsa music.
Thank you. I'm Osman from the Peace and Conflict Studies Department, and I think the random thing about me is I'm still trying to get a hang of the salsa dance. Like, I still haven't caught up with the magic yet, so we'll get.
Hi, good. My name is Brian Gonzalez. I am visiting professor in the Environment and Development Department, and I love bird watching. So it's my hobby. Bird watching.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia Sylvester. I'm a professor in the Environment Development Department, and I am learning how to sew, but with a machine.
Hello, I'm Darby. I'm the Academic Support Officer in the Department of Environment and Development. I work with Clara. So excited to support both of you guys. And I would say my most recent hobby obsession is crochet.
Thanks everyone for sharing. I actually forgot an important part in my presentation. I'm a happy member of the Department of Environment and Development. I'm instructor and program coordinator as well. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing, everyone. And again, it's great that you're here. I will start sharing a little bit about my research. But first of all, I would like to ask you, who of you has heard of the Rights of Nature movement? And who of you knows a name of a river that has gained rights? Or a country, maybe? No? Okay, and who's been to the south of Costa Rica? Great. So my research project is a participatory action research through which I analyze how a river rights approach can be suitable or align with the needs of the Taraba Basin and why that is important and what does that mean, I will tell you now. But first of all, I actually have a reflection question for you. So I would like to, throughout this presentation, I would like you to think about this. If rivers could speak, what do you think they would say to us today? So we all know that water is the foundation of all life and that rivers are the foundation of healthy ecosystems and the communities that live in those ecosystems. And for many communities, rivers also hold a very spiritual, cultural meaning that constitutes their identity. It's not a secret, though, that we're living in a climate crisis, which is also a water crisis. And unfortunately, rivers today are among the most degraded ecosystems of our planet. The thing is, in history, rivers have always been very important. They've always played an important role in human societies, and they've always been interacting with rivers. But in a colonial capitalist system based on extractivism, rivers have been subjected to expansive modification, let's say. And water is the central ingredient of all our economic activities today. In this system, rivers have increasingly become to be used merely as a resource to be exploited and controlled to serve powerful economic and political interests. And today, corporations are the single largest user and influencer in water discourses, and they really have power to shape the spaces and discourses around water today, and that also means they have disproportionate power over our river resources and ecosystems. So if we analyze international and environmental law, which is often based on Western legal systems, we will see how it perpetuates colonial hierarchies because it is based on a worldview that treats the environment or nature as subordinate and human property, and that holds value for its potential to be owned. And having said that, maybe it's not a surprise that current environmental law hasn't been really able to tackle a lot of the environmental crisis we are facing today, and also to address pressing issues of justice or injustice, like the unequal access to water, also rights asymmetries and imbalanced value levels of protection and decision-making. Moreover, sadly, also a lot of mainstream governance initiatives mainstream governance often sidelines grassroots initiatives that actually have a different and alternative way of how they relate to the rivers, and instead they favor large-scale projects that disregard local knowledge and needs and that silence the people and the commons. So increasingly, land and water defenders become targets of violence and criminalization. Specifically, Latin America has become a very dangerous place for environmental defenders, and especially indigenous people face alarming levels of threats, violence, and killings. So we all study or live in Costa Rica. What do you think? Is Costa Rica an exception in this context? No. Well, we could say that on the surface, Costa Rica has a really strong reputation in environmental leadership, and it has been long been recognized for reversing deforestation or for sourcing most of the electricity from so-called renewable resources. It's also very promising in its promise or its goal to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Costa Rica is also famous for abolishing the military and for being home to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. It's actively participating in international agreements, but this environmental reputation is not without, let's say, contradictions, right? So we know, just to give you some examples, we know Costa Rica has really high, or the highest pesticide use rates in the world, which is leading to severe water contamination, and also water supply is decreasing in Costa Rica. We have let's say, the current environmental programs, a lot of them are facing financial cuts. And at the same time, it seems that the tourism sector and the big agribusinesses can expand exponentially without a lot of control. So it seems that there is an urgency to accelerate the economy after the pandemic, maybe, and to an extent that the current government is even putting back on the table issues that previously had been seen as resolved, such as exploring fossil fuels or re-legalizing trawling fishing. Actually, at this very moment in the Legislative Assembly, there is a new law that's being discussed, which I don't know how to translate it. Let's say it's called the Electrical Harmonization Law, which basically means that electricity could become privatized in the future. And if we consider that Costa Rica has or sources over 70% of its electricity from hydropower, that also means that rivers would be privatized in the future. And also in Costa Rica, defending water and life is not without risk, right? So environmental defenders increasingly become targets of violence, and the murders of 2 indigenous leaders in recent years and the ongoing impunity of their murderers highlight this violence and a lack of accountability. So it is in this global context where the rights of nature movement is emerging. The movement comprises a diverse coalition of people, indigenous, non-indigenous, environmental defenders, activists, lawyers, scientists, community members, policymakers that all together advocate for a transformative systemic change. And it's growing really fast. So within only the past 2 decades, there are over 400 rights of nature initiatives that have been mapped around the world. And importantly, we can see that most of those cases lie in the Americas. And despite rights are often being maybe a foreign concept in indigenous worldviews, we can see that indigenous peoples have been a leading voice in the rights of nature movement. And all these cases are really distinct, right? This is really important to keep in mind. Each case is very distinct. The contexts are different, but common messages of this movement are, for example, an urgent need to redefine law in the context of climate change, to create new alternative discourses to the extractive economic discourses that are present right now, and to rethink the human relationship with nature. Therefore, nature has an intrinsic right to exist, to flourish, and to renew its life cycles. And rivers have been the focal point of this movement. They've been a catalyst for the rights of nature movement. Most of the ecosystems that have been gained rights are rivers. And often, river rights aim to empower guardians or appointed guardians to take legal actions against maybe an individual or an entity that is causing harm to a river ecosystem. But really important is also that those guardianships are not only there to take legal actions against, but to prevent, right? So the idea is to empower people to get a seat at the table and to give a river a voice through those guardians. And so they can become part of important decision-making processes. And well, let's say despite this really important traction and the very important let's say it's a transformative paradigm that these cases embody, there is a lot of uncertainty still. So we don't really know what the practical outcomes of those river rights are, and sometimes some studies even demonstrate that there are how would you say, like detrimental impacts of river rights in communities and also in the rivers. So for example, depending on where we establish those river rights, they can expose guardians in conflict areas. Or what about the actual right to water in those rivers, right? So there are a lot of questions. There are many more questions than answers right now. And there is also not really a legal established pathway to how to achieve those rights. And I think there is really a lot of potential here too, because there is a lot to be learned yet. And before we keep advocating for river rights as this like magic tool for environmental protection or for a change, we actually should hold on for a moment and analyze what other cases have been able to achieve and what have they not, right? And what are risks and what are key elements for success, and translate this into local contexts and add local knowledge to it so that we can honestly actually say what is it useful for and what not. And here probably we come to the most important part of my presentation. Why does all this matter to me, right? So in Costa Rica, there are no legal rights of nature yet. However, there might be potential, because if we think of what we just discussed and the strong environmental leadership role that Costa Rica perpetuates internationally, could be a good moment to think about rights of nature. And at the same time, it could be really important, especially here, because of all the actual environmental and social challenges that we just mentioned before. So, as I've mentioned before, I've lived and worked in the south of Costa Rica, which belongs to the Taraba Basin, for almost 10 years in the past. And by critically scrutinizing river rights, I want to better understand how and if this could be an approach that is aligned and that can support local communities and movements in the south of Costa Rica in their decades, if not centuries-long struggles to defend life and health in the region. And all this is sustained by the Taraba Basin, right? So I myself am honored to be part of such a movement, which is called Ríos Vivos, and we advocate for free-flowing rivers, access to water, and healthy environments for local communities. And with my research, I aim to use my resources to really give us an academic foundation on river rights discourses, and what it could be useful for and what not, but also to create a space from where we then together can think about how this could be an approach that aligns with the needs in the Taraba Basin. So I'm planning to do this through a participatory design research approach with a decolonial feminist environmental justice lens, and using multiple research methods such as like a solid analysis of documents, but also semi-structured interviews, field observations, and participatory workshops. And I think that this research will not only be useful for our context in the South, but the broader context in Costa Rica. And it could also serve as a useful methodological guide in the region in similar cases. I also think that there is value in my contribution as part of the academic community to the movement, but also my experience as part of a movement to the academic community. And so to end, I just wanted to draw a little picture of the basin, but maybe I would just wrap it up so that you have a little bit more of context where I'm working in. So actually, I just want to share how lucky I feel to have been able to be part of the communities I'm part of, and that I really had the honor to have the best and most important life experiences so far. And one really important thing is a very strong resistance that is there in the South. People who really stand at the front lines defending their communities and their territories. And this is really important. So the Taraba Basin is the largest basin in Costa Rica and one of the most polluted. It is a really beautiful space, very biodiverse and home to 8 indigenous territories. But today also monoculture plantations, mostly pineapple, but also others, of course, like palm oil and sugarcane, dominate the region. And those agriculture corporations not only contaminate the water and lead to deforestation, but they also take a lot of water from the rivers for their irrigation systems. And so they have caused severe health issues and also disrupting local socio-economic dynamics. And this map, I just wanted to show you. Here you can see communal resistance to hydroelectricity projects. And the blue ones are actually projects that have been detained or halted. And so if you have a look at this, you can see that in the South, all of the projects have been stopped. And that is because of the communal resistance. So I just wanted to highlight this here so you can see that there is already a really solid structure of community resistance in place. But as we mentioned before, defending water and life isn't without risk, and it's not always easy for people to speak up, especially in the face of these corporations, because that could lead to unemployment for people, for their families. But it is also really dangerous because the 2 indigenous leaders I've showed you before are both from the Taraba Basin. So thinking about now, just to finish and wrapping up a little bit, there are no protected rivers in the south of Costa Rica, but they're really important spiritually, culturally for the people and for also the livelihood of the people there. And if we think about how hard it is also to, how draining environmental defense can be, right? And how dangerous it also can be. It really is time to think about new tools that not only help us to protect the ecosystems from harm, but actually prevent that harm. And I think river rights could be an interesting approach to do that, so that we can actually think about new alternative development models than the ones that are proposed and perpetuated right now. So, maybe that is what I want to share. And to end maybe with this citation, all rights, including humans, depend on the health and vitality of Earth's living systems. And maybe you can now just think about the question I asked you in the beginning. If rivers were able to speak, what would they tell us today? Maybe just think about that for one moment, and then we can start with Michelle. Thank you. You don't need this, right?
No, thank you. All right. So as we mentioned, we'll have time for questions and hopefully answers, at least discussion at the end. So thanks for holding those. So my name is Michelle, and I'm also one of the doctoral fellows here at UPEACE. I moved here from Portland, Oregon, where I've lived for a number of years, and I've been committed and engaged to building health equity, peace, and justice outcomes with organizations and communities for a number of years throughout Latin America and the United States, and a bit in the South Pacific as well. So this research that I'll tell you about in a moment is really a mechanism to support and uplift the ongoing work that I have the privilege to do with the communities and organizations that I get to work with. So to start, I'm actually going to ask you all to become involved in this presentation as it shifts into a little bit of a discussion. And we're gonna get up, and we're gonna just take a moment to walk around the room and without talking, just kind of notice something that you haven't noticed before. Maybe if it's your first time in this room, welcome. Notice something new, but just take a moment and notice something that you have not seen before. And we'll just take less than a minute to do this. Move around, shake out your legs, get that lunch digesting. And then wherever you are, we'll pause and find a partner who is near you. And with your partner, you can share first your name and the thing that caught your attention, and then you can have a small discussion about your experience with pockets. Okay, so I'll tell you later why, because that's related to my research, but we want to start with getting you involved, thinking and talking about that. So you can share with your partner if you want the thing that you noticed, and we'll just take 1 or 2 minutes each to share a story or an experience that you have about pockets. Alrighty? Any questions? Ready, go. And I'll tell you when to switch. So if person 1 is still talking, start to wrap up so the other person can have a chance to share. We'll switch who's talking and sharing. So 1 more minute, 1 minute. If you haven't switched yet, please switch the person who's talking. All right, so let's make our way back to our seats, finish up those conversations. Making our way back to gather as a group. I'm sure you can talk for much more about this topic. Feel free to continue those conversations after. But we'll just take maybe from 2 or 3 people in the interest of time. If you'd like to share, I'll hand you the mic. Anything that came up for you that was an insight or just anything that was interesting that came up for you in those conversations, if you'd like to share. No pressure.
I noticed the coconuts in the palm trees. So I wonder why the cafeteria, the soda, does not sell coconut water.
Oh. Thank you. Anybody else would like to share?
Gabby noticed these curtains, or what do you call them? I forgot. But we were having a discussion of, I don't remember them being there for the longest time. Like, are these a recent thing? Or Gabby was arguing they've always been there, the blinds, and they just, haven't been rolled down. So this is a question I had for people, like, who've been here longer? I don't think they were around before. Like, they seem a recent thing, like in the recent...
I have never in my life noticed
noticed them before.
And when you see them, you see this camera as well.
Aha. All right, let's have anybody else, anything that came up regarding the pockets? Interesting.
Okay, I can make a comment about the pockets. Me and Laura said that it kind of just gives our hands something to do, to rest in. So if we don't know what else to do, it's easy.
Thank you. Alrighty. Anybody else? Go this double. I'm really into it.
Well, I'm really into my dress with pockets. I'm wearing a dress that has pockets, and my keys are in my pocket. My phone was in my pocket. I felt very happy about it.
Optional to tell us a little bit more about why that is important to you?
Well, I like to wear dresses a lot, and most dresses don't come with pockets. I was talking with JC, and he said, well, I always wear pants, and my pants have 4 pockets, and they're deep, and you can fit all the things in them. And yeah, we were talking about how even a lot of women's clothes have like small pockets that you can't actually put stuff in, and that's annoying. So my current dress I feel very happy about.
Thank you. All right, so interesting. It's as if Stephanie and I have had conversations before about this. She's one of my supervisors. Can you put that back, please? Thank you. She's one of my supervisors for the PhD process. So why pockets? Hold on, this will make a noise. Oh, I did it. Why are pockets important, and what does this have to do with peace and health? I actually need to be standing. I don't think I want to be sitting. So there was a 2018 study by Amber Thomas and Jan Dame they work with this data publication group called The Pudding, who did a study about pockets. And they found that only 5% of women's pockets can fit the Google Pixel smartphone, which is a lot bigger than this because this is a mini. Only 5% of women's pockets can fit that phone, compared to 85% of men's clothing pockets that can fit the same phone. So for the sake of making this more interactive, I don't have the images to share, but I'm happy to, if anybody wants to follow up, they have a really neat, to me, as a data nerd, website that shows some of those images and the comparison of pockets that are very small, or sometimes even it's a fake pocket, and it's just like a sewed in line where they need to hire Olivia to create some new sewing innovation.
Sorry, yeah, I do have a pocket story. A couple of weeks ago, I put my phone here, and then I went to the bathroom, and when it went inside the toilet. Thankfully, it was, it didn't have that much water, and it looked clean, so I took it out. It wasn't all that wet, and I washed it, but.
The risks and the dangers of pockets or lack thereof. So, much longer story short, when I came across this information, because I love to learn about data and data justice and how is it collected and how is it communicated and shared, I love this as an example because it got me thinking, well, who designed these pockets? How did they design them? With who in mind? Maybe in some cases it was just so they could sell a lot of pants, which isn't necessarily a problem in itself, but it can create unfortunate risks and situations for those of us using those pockets. Let's zoom out a little bit bigger picture, thinking about, as I mentioned, okay, Michelle, what are you talking about? You're doing your PhD in peace and health innovation. What do pockets have to do with this? You think about design. Design in itself is this practice that supports problem solving, planning, meaning making. It can unintentionally perpetuate rather than reduce harms in a perhaps mild situation of breaking a phone to more severe scenarios that we'll get to in a minute. It mediates a lot of our realities, and it has an impact on our lives, how things are designed. But few of us participate in those design processes, and especially those who might be adversely affected by design decisions do not often have a place at the table or a space to be doing and engaging in that, although the impact on them can be very real. them maybe being us as well. So given that, and then we'll get more into the research details in a moment, thinking about, we draw up from pockets to this bigger picture of design. Where might you feel some of those impacts in your life? And I'll give you one example of accessibility. If you look out of the window here, there are stairs and there's also a ramp. So if somebody needs assistance, has a mobility device, that's going to support them in accessing the bathroom or other spaces that people who might not need that device have. So there was a designer or an architect who thought, okay, how can I create this space in a way that is more inclusive and accessible, so those people that can walk versus the people that might need support can still have that same access, right? We haven't, I'm not asking people who use mobility devices if that is actually useful for them, but just as a visual. So I'll just give you all opportunity to turn to your neighbor, we don't have to get up, and think about share a story or think about an experience of how design might impact your life. That can be fashion, that can be architecture, that might be something else. All right, so we'll just take a moment to brainstorm, and if you're like, I don't know, I don't get it, that's okay. Just share a little bit with your partner, whoever you're sitting next to. So this one's a quick share, so if you wrap up and then have the other person share as well, for the sake of time. All right, so just winding down those conversations. I know that you have much more to say. All right, ding. So, sorry that was quite short. I just wanted to give you a little chance to share and think about it, and I'm going to keep going, and then if there's any additional reflections that you want to include with your questions at the end, that's when we'll have time to discuss. Some things that have come up in my reflections and conversations about this before, and what I've been learning through the literature review and the research, is that where else might we feel those design impacts? Visual culture, technology, community planning, political processes, economic structures, and as I mentioned, architecture, fashion, and more. So if this was a longer workshop, we'd maybe be creating a list or some mapping of that. There's many things that you can do even just with this concept of design, and it interested me so much as a creative person and my forthcoming research identity in how can I center this design approach in some of this research that I'm doing focused on peace and health innovation. So design justice is an approach that reimagines design and how it's done, and it really centers people who might normally be marginalized from those design processes and decisions, and centers them using a collaborative and creative practice to address complex challenges, from reimagining how breast pumps are designed and creating, for example, an engaged workshop with parents who breastfeed and designers, and having those parents who are the users of the pump inform how those pumps are designed, because I'm not a mother and haven't used one, but from what I've heard, they're actually not the most comfortable thing. So, and that's related to I'm not going to get too deep into it now, but health inequity and access to resources for parents who might not have access to resources that they need so that they can raise their babies to be healthy and well. So that's just one example, but health inequity more broadly is this global issue that really impedes efforts towards peace and eco-social justice outcomes, as we heard from my esteemed colleague regarding rivers as one example. What happens when that water system degrades is certainly not positive health outcomes for anybody. Might be money in somebody else's pocket, but for the rest of us, not so much. Looking at this peace and health intersection, those of us studying peace know this concept of positive and negative peace, where peace is more than the absence of violence, and what it really takes to build peace is access to healthcare, education, resources, information, etc. And similarly with health, being healthy is more than just the absence of illness or disease. It's also access to resources, education, community, indigenous languages, many other examples of things that are needed to be healthy, including social determinants of health, where, how can I say, for somebody to be healthy is more than just not being sick. It's can be determined by social factors like where you live, how much money you have access to, which is not inherently a problem to the person, but to structural systems that can impact and influence that access, decision-making, etc. So given this kind of similarity between peace and health and that they each depend on each other, see my dissertation in a couple years on a more thorough discussion of that. Organizations that are working towards creating health equity, peace, and justice outcomes are engaging a number of innovative solutions towards solving some of these complex problems around violence and inequity, but they often bump up against the innovation being really expensive. Maybe it's super tech focused and doesn't really focus on the internal cultural and or organizational component. And a few other examples in 10 or so studies that I was able to find that talk about that intersection. Some of them noting using human-centered design or other design approaches, but none of them using this design justice framework that I have come across and am applying to really center that healing and justice component as a transformational change tool. So, this research project is offering a potential solution by exploring the role of the design justice framework to inform practice, education, research, and hopefully even policy design through this peace, tech, innovation, intervention process. The research question is, what is the role of design justice as a peace innovation to support culture change with organizations working to achieve health equity? So it's less about asking a yes or no question of if it works, similar to Clara. It's really just this exploration of the how and the why behind the what in order to inform ongoing movement building and practice and advocacy and activism, etc. So the interesting thing about doctoral research is you get to do all this work to develop a question, and then you get to do a lot more work to think about, well, how am I going to find the answer to that question, which means developing a methodology. So I'm using a design research methodology, which is an immersive approach. So imagine going scuba diving or snorkeling versus being on the boat at the shore, observing from afar. So this is an immersive approach that focuses on identifying challenges and needs with an organization, in my case, to create some actionable insights and then inform the strategic design of the development of a product, a service, or a program. So the research partner that I have the privilege to collaborate with is called the Green String Network, and they are located in Nairobi, Kenya. They're a healing-centered peace-building non-for-profit organization working throughout the region on beyond trauma-informed, but really healing-centered peace-building, mental health and wellness, women's economic empowerment, youth engagement. They work with police departments, policymakers, schools, activists, etc. And they are developing a mobile mental health and microfinance, like a phone application called Ustawi. It means to thrive in Swahili. And so they're really building on this transformative power of community-driven change within a non-hierarchical and decolonized and healing-centered approach by honoring wisdom of ancestral healing paths and integrating those with modern technology with the effort to not replace humans with AI, but really interweave those as a peace tech innovation focused on health equity. So where I come in is to support them implementing this design justice framework as an organizational culture change tool to support their bigger picture design and implementation or design and launch of the app. And so it's a 4-phase methodology. So far we've identified challenges and needs to decentralize power and decision making, facilitate opportunities to break barriers for engagement, building trust, fostering creativity and collaboration for the team so that they can really work together more effectively in that process that's going to have an impact on people in at least Kenya and Somalia and hopefully the broader African region. We then reviewed insights from that needs assessment to inform the development of the forthcoming design, prototyping, and co-creation sessions that'll be in Nairobi next month. And those will be drawing from a number of different methods, including popular education, and which has been shown to be an effective tool in public health design and engagement processes. And then we'll have a experience mapping method as a debrief to better understand and answer that question really is what is the role and what were the people's experience with that role, in hopes that that can be used to make recommendations to inform how policy and processes are designed around peace tech and health innovation. I hope to continue to disseminate the knowledge that we have created together as a collaborative research team via additional presentations, publishing, conferences, maybe even some workshops here, so stay tuned. And with my ongoing consulting work as well, because I work as a consultant doing this exact type of work, but with organizations who invite me in to support them with it. In this particular case, this organization gets the immediate benefit of receiving that type of consultative training and support, that also everything that we do counts as data and informs part of the analysis and synthesis of the dissertation that will eventually be, because it is, after all, for the sake of earning a PhD as one of my intended outcomes. So that's that. I think I will open it up to questions for either of us. And yeah.
Clara, could you go back to your presentation?
Yeah, can try.
One of the pictures.
Yes. Maybe somebody else in the meantime wants to ask another question.
Oh, are you talking about PhD?
Yeah, really careful.
It was the slide that said, no to PhD.
No PhD. It was really.
Okay, so that is PhD, which is Proyecto Hidroeléctrico de Quis in the south.
So is that really?
I didn't realize that.
Thank you both for your presentations. It was really enjoyable to hear more about your research. Clara, I have a question for you. I've been following the Rights of Nature movement, maybe superficially, not at the level you have. And a question I've always had and just never reflected enough or found the answer is why are the rights of rivers so popular? Why? I know there's rights of other elements, but why is there been such a boom in rights of rivers?
Okay, thanks for the question. There are many different answers, right? So we can't really know. But what I've read in literature is, for example, as I mentioned, rivers are really important ecosystems. And we can see that as well when we look into activism around water. That is the one resource or the one element where a lot of people really start to mobilize and effectively protect, because it's the basis of life, right? Another reason might be that actually rivers are this one ecosystem that is a little bit easier to define. So you kind of know where it starts, you kind of know where it ends, whereas a mountain also could be, right? But sometimes it's much harder to define where it starts and where it ends. And also because rivers are ecosystems that are always linked to human populations. So humans live close and as I said, they construct identity around the rivers. And so I think this is one of the reasons. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I mean, despite the issue of the picture that we were wondering here, no PhD. I mean, congratulations to both of you. Really, really interesting. As you know, I'm very close to the river law issue, and I have many questions and many comments about what you said, and more or less in relation with what Olivia mentioned. Perhaps in the area of international law as such, is one of the areas has changed a lot in the last 20 years, and especially in the Americas, because perhaps in the international river law, the whole European approach was, rivers are for communications or for transportation. That's it. I mean, because basically Europeans changed, traditionally speaking, changed the whole, because today the main European waterways are far from a river. The Rhine, the Danube, all have been intervened by the human hand, for centuries. So it's very difficult to really reconnect into traditional ecosystems. However, in the Americas, perhaps with the exception of the Mississippi, there is no that intervention. So they have changed a lot in the whole paradigm around how we should treat rivers. And it's very interesting, and it's an area that I think you were quite unfair with international law in your quote, because, for example, from the International Dam Commission, they say, look, it's not worth it to build big dams. The damage that we provoke is really not, so it's very interesting, the debate from the point of view of international law, that we all understand that international law is traditional, we are always behind the reality, but in any sense, it's great to have you thinking about this, and I'm more than happy to exchange about that particular issue from the legal point of view, so thank you.
Maybe you already know it, but we carry a book in the library. It's a research from former UPEACE professor Jürgen Karls, related with the Teraba River Basin conflict and the indigenous populations.
Thank you.
Well, hi, and thank you for what you're sharing both with us. For Clara, I just want to say that I just could hear like the last part, but I was thinking in the Broran people. I really admire them. They are really fighters, and the women they have a really important paper in the different situations of the community. So I think that this spiritual connection with the river is also connected with the women's in the Broran at least territory. So thank you for that. I don't remember your name, sorry, Michelle, thank you. Michelle, I was thinking right now in this part is about my personal experience. I'm left-handed, so I think that I'm survivor in a right-handed world. And I was thinking when I was talking with my partner in the second exercise, that in any minute, I was thinking about my own situation. I'm a real survivor in this situation of the thinking that the world is designed for only left-handed people, And right now, I remember that once somebody like offered me a scissor for left-handed people, and I was like, "What is that?" I don't know what are you talking about. And this is, I think, something interesting because I never think about the design situation and intersection with peace and health. So I think that we are still a minority in the world, and it's not the most important situation regarding to other kind of situations. But I don't know if this is something that you talk about it, like this, situations that we cannot notice because they are too normalized in this world. But well, thank you. I was just thinking about it. I have 34 years old and I never think about this situation before until now. So thank you for that.
Thanks for sharing, and I'll just say that I feel your pain, and I'm excited that it resonates because part of my interest and hopes in doing the research is also thinking about, again, how is the data collected, with who, for who, and why, and how is that shared? And there's a movement kind of around data visualization and how we present graphs and maps and other arts-based creative methods, whether that's sewing, there are projects, activism around this. And how to visualize and visceralize that so people can get that lived experience. Maybe a right-handed person use a left-handed scissors, like, what? This is ridiculous. Well, this is how I'm living all 34 years. So I hope to be able to partner with an organization that's offered to support in visualizing some of the data from the research to be able to bring that to broader audiences and conversations and hopefully create change and opportunity. So we'll stay in touch.
I wanted to ask Michelle, is this app already online, or is it only for Africa or for Kenya, or?
So right now they're in as far as I understand, the prototyping and design, the design phase to prototype. So there are certain components that exist, but to my understanding, I don't think it's live yet, although I would rely on them to confirm that. And the idea is that they have some existing online programs that have been adapted because of the pandemic, like circle processes that used to be in person that have been adapted to remote and online into this app, particularly throughout Kenya. And now they're working with specialists as well to adapt those to a Somali cultural context, because while they're neighboring, they're not the same. And part of the goal is, I cannot totally speak on their behalf, I suppose, but my understanding is that the goal is to be able to expand that in a way that's culturally relevant and responsive to other groups and people that might be able to use the app, and the nuances of how that is designed is forthcoming. But because of it being mobile and remote, there's the potential to be global impact, and that's part of what I hope that the design justice approach can support them in thinking through some of those questions, or maybe informing some of the questions that they're already asking around, who will this impact, how and why, are they left-handed, but not with that, use that as a metaphor for whatever the other context is. Trying to at least mitigate harm and promote more equity and justice and good through it. Maybe we're just over, so if there's one more question, and then we can say thank you so much for sharing and supporting us. Okay, thank you so much, especially Maria Teresa for coordinating the program, and the Global Center team, Sylvia, Gavi, and Juan Carlos. So, and thank you everybody for your support. I really feel it, and it makes a difference. So thank you.